We're back by unpopular demand for another episode of Cooking with Nate. And Lucy, you wanna come cook? Come on. She's coming. Hi, bees. Say hi. Today we're going to be cooking a traditional Armenian style hummus. If you're not familiar with that, you might have heard it as hummus. Yeah, that's right. Today you're gonna need some chickpeas, some extra virgin olive oil, some garlic, some tahini paste. This stuff is gross by itself. You're gonna need some not lime juice, some parsley flakes. Parsley, go ahead. Parsley, there we go. Ground cumin, some salt, which I ground already, and I think that about baking soda, oddly enough. This is only necessary if you're using dried chickpeas. If you're gonna use a can of chickpeas, forget the baking soda. We'll tell you more about that in a second. It should be noted that chickpeas can also be referred to as garbanzo beans. So if you have a can of garbanzo beans in your cabinet and you want to make some homemade hummus, go ahead and skip ahead in the video to where you see a food processor on the counter. Oh yeah, you're gonna need a food processor. I will try to figure out how to make a timestamp and put that into the description, but if you look in the description and there's no timestamp to that, just go ahead and skip ahead until you see the food processor on the counter. So if you choose to follow along with the dried bean recipe, what you're gonna wanna do is take this bag of garbanzo beans, put them in a pot, fill it just so it's about an inch of water over the top of your beans, and put it in the fridge overnight. That's gonna allow these beans to soak up some water and become, the beans you would normally eat. So I've already done that. That pot is full of them, and we're gonna take this to the sink to show you the next step. So our next step is going to be draining these that have soaked overnight. We don't want that water anymore. We want some fresh water in there. This is where our baking soda is going to come in. We're going to fill that up with water and take a tablespoon of baking soda, pop it right in there. And then we're gonna take that over to the stovetop and get it to a boil. Why the heck did he put baking soda in that pot before he brought those beans to a boil? When you get the dried garbanzo beans in the bag like that and you boil them, they come with a little skin on them that can be easily peeled off. Not only does this make your hummus not as creamy, but it also has a little chemical in it that can upset some people's stomachs. So what we do is we bring that pot to a boil. Literally, as soon as it starts to boil, we're gonna turn it off. The baking soda reacts with that peel in there with those beans and allows us to easily remove them when taking it over to the sink. So let's go do that now. Okay, before we get to peeling, we're gonna wanna drain these beans so we can rinse that baking soda off. Pro tip, leave the beans in the strainer. Don't ever take them out of the strainer. So now that we have our beans in the strainer, we can rinse off all that baking soda. Very nice. And we'll want to rinse off the baking soda in our pot as well. Not a big deal, but just a little rinse there. And fill that back up. And toss your beans back in. Because now we're going to peel them. So, some of the peels come off very, very easily. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. There it is right there. That is a peel from a garbanzo bean. And they will literally, let's see, can we get the focus here? Just whoop, pop right off. So, the easiest way to do this is to just grab the beans and rub them together. This is why we don't boil them too much, because we want them to still be hard. We don't want to be able to break them that easily. So we just rub them together. And this is going to be the most tedious part of this whole process. So that's why I said, if you want to skip all this and just use a can of beans, in my opinion, not quite as good, but you don't have to do this part. And after rubbing for a little bit, you can see how cloudy that water has gotten because there's a bunch of peels in there. And so we're just going to discard those. You can use a strainer and give it a little mix so all the peels float to the top, the skins float to the top, and just scoop them out. And then you're going to have a strainer full of skins like that. Now I'll go this process a few times, I try to get about 80 to 90% of the peels off. That will make our hummus nice and creamy, just like you would get in a real fancy restaurant. Again, we're just vigorously rubbing here. And after about 5 minutes or so, you're going to see all the skins that we got off. And we're going to do one more step just to try to get those last little bits that are stuck in there. I'm going to get rid of these skins. We're going to pour the beans into this strainer, because that's where we ultimately want them to do the next step of the boiling process. We'll pick this back up. Okay, I realize I misspoke just a second ago. I told you to put the beans in here, but don't do that yet. Our next step is going to get these last details of these skins off. I did get rid of the skins that were in our strainer, and now what we're going to do is we're going to strain these last ones with this little smaller strainer, just so we can get any last remaining peels off. I don't know if you could see that in the camera, but there are still peels floating in there. So what we do is we scoop some up, and we're just going to work them around until we get the peels to kind of float out like that. And then we can dump the beans into the big strainer. Well, it looks pretty good. I think we're just going to go ahead and dump the rest into the strainer. Okay, so now we're going to fill this back up. Put these beans, keep them in the strainer there. Fill it back up because we're gonna bring those to a boil, and now actually we're gonna cook them. Oh, I see a couple stragglers in there. I'm gonna grab them out just because they look easy to grab. Yeah, that was it. Okay, let's go over the stove again. Okay, so our garbanzo beans are on the stove top. They're boiling. I do the old wooden spoon trick. I don't know if it actually works, but it ain't failed me yet. We're gonna let those boil for an hour, as a matter of fact. Our hour is set. We're gonna go have some fun in the meantime. We'll see you back in a little bit. That's our signal that the beans are cooked and they're ready to go in the food processor and start making some delicious hummus. We're gonna drain those beans, bring them over here, get them in the food processor and start making some delicious hummus. She's never had it, don't listen to her. Garbanzo beans. Okay, so you got your trusty food processor here, hopefully. You can use a blender, it just takes a little bit longer to make that nice pureed bean paste that we want. The food processor really does work best. We're gonna put all our wet ingredients in first with the garlic and make a paste in the bottom before we start adding the beans. That's just gonna let everything really blend up, all our flavors really blend up before we add the beans and start thickening it up. So let's get to that. So in no particular order here, we're gonna go ahead and dump in some garlic. We are going to do 4 good spoonfuls of lemon juice. Now remember, here we can always add more, but we can't take away once we've put it in, so, you know, start slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do 2 extra virgin olive oil spoons. See, those are hefty spoons right there. That's how we roll. Let's see here. We got some parsley to put in. We're gonna do a spoon of parsley. We're gonna do a spoon of cumin. Woof! This is a very good way to add too much. Pouring them right over top. We're gonna do a spoonful of salt. That's about a spoonful. And then we're gonna blend those up. We want that garlic to be nice and chopped up before we start adding our beans in. So, let's do that. Now we're going to take our tahini and we're going to give it a little shaky shake, and we're going to take a spoonful of that, dump it in there. Now the reason we haven't put this in yet is because it's very thick, okay? And we wanted that garlic to really puree up, get really blended up here. So we're going to take the tahini and we're going to put it in there, bam. And we want to get as much off of that as we can. And word to the wise, don't lick this spoon. It's ground up sesame seeds. As you hear me lick it. It doesn't taste very good. Now we're going to start adding our beans in. And we're going to blend. And this is why we didn't drain the water right here. We're going to add a little bit of that water that we used to boil the beans, just to add a little bit of that flavor from the boiled beans into our food processor to help us to blend this up a little bit more. It's a little bit dry right now, and we don't want to add any other flavors to this process until we get a nice texture for our hummus. So again, we're gonna start small, and we're gonna go from there. I'm just gonna grab a little ladle, and I'm gonna pour a little bit in and see how that goes. Ooh, that's looking better already. Yeah, that's that nice creamy texture, but we still have some whole beans in here, so we're gonna add some more. Ooh, that's got a good taste to it though. Just I'm gonna add another little bit of liquid. And that's gonna help us creamy this out. Ooh, that's looking good. Oh yeah, that's nice. It's fluffy. It's thick, but it doesn't have any huge chunks in it. I'm gonna give it a taste here. Well, that's pretty perfect. I would like a little bit more lemon in there. So I'm just gonna give a little bit of lemon juice. And because I put some extra liquid in there, I'm gonna add some more beans. And we're gonna go ahead and give that another spin. Oh, that's solid. I think we're done here. So there you go. That's a traditional Armenian style hummus made from scratch. If you use the can of garbanzo beans, one full can would have given you a batch worth of hummus just like we made. If you use the bag, you still have a whole nother batch worth of beans that you can use. Typically, this will last Brittany and I about a week. Here it is, finished product. I will explain in a second. You can eat it with a spoon. You can grab some pita bread. You can make pita bread. You can just dip some pita bread in there or some like pita chips or something. It's a great spread for sandwiches. If you like making sandwiches, put that instead of mayonnaise or mustard or something. It'll kind of, you know, give you a little Middle Eastern flavor to your sandwiches. Hi, Lucy. I just like eating it with a spoon. It's a little midday snack, you know, between your lunch and your breakfast or your lunch and your dinner. Just a couple spoonfuls, you give you a kick of protein and some other vitamins in there. And this will typically last us about a week, like I said. And then I'll make another batch with it, and we'll go from there. The really cool thing about this is that you can put whatever spice in there you want. If you want to put sriracha, you put sriracha. If you want to put cayenne pepper, you put cayenne pepper. It's just a base that you can mold to whatever the liking of your palate is. This is traditional. We put a little paprika on top and some olive oil. That's where you get that glisten like that, and that'll mix in very nicely. Hey, thanks for joining me again. I hope you enjoy this one. If you decide to go the crazy route like I do and go from scratch, then it'll take you about an hour and a half to 2 hours from start to finish, with about 40 minutes of active time in there. If you decide you want to just use a can, then it'll be it's like 20 minutes at the max. And you have a week's worth of delicious appetizer or snack for your family and your friends. Hey, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.